So can I get a show of hands for anyone who has ever played a video game at any point in their entire life? Most of you, right? Okay, so let's try to wean it down a little bit. Who here plays video games at least 3 times a week? Okay, not so many of you. Out of those people, who here has played one of the GTA games, Grand Theft Auto? A couple of you, okay. Out of those people, who here has ever robbed a bank? Stolen a car? Killed someone? So, as we saw, about 91% of today's youth plays video games. And I think it's pretty relevant that my topic today is I want to explain to you the true effects that gaming has on the human mind. So today I'm going to go over the different types of games and their positive and negative effects. We're going to go over some common misconceptions about gaming and the future of gaming. So let's start by going through a list of the different types of games and the mental skills that you use when playing them. There we go. So we're going to start with shooters, the FPS game. These are the most ridiculed games out there by parents and critics because, let's face it, who's going to learn anything shooting zombies and aliens? Now we have a couple very large franchise games here, such as Battlefield or Halo. And a lot of people don't think that you're actually learning anything or gaining any skills while playing these games. Well, that's just not true. You can learn things like multitasking, teamwork, all kinds of reflexive skills. It's statistically proven that people who play these fast-paced action games on a regular basis are better drivers because of the skills that they're learning playing the games. Now there's also a downside to all these games, such as no independent thinking when it comes to games like these, and that's where a lot of ridicule is. As Daphne Bavier says, she compares video games to wine. She says there are some very poor uses of wine, and there are also some very poor uses of video gaming. But when consumed in reasonable doses and at the right age, wine can be very good for your health. So what she's trying to express is that binging anything is really bad. You know, too much Shakespeare has a negative effect on your mind. Too much linear algebra has a negative effect on your mind. So moving on, there's all these different types of games, and they all have a different effect on your mind, such as the massive multiplayer online games. These have a very negative effect on your mind as far as their addictiveness. A lot of you may have heard of the game franchise World of Warcraft, and how it's able to retain players' attention for up to days. But there's also all kinds of positive effects that these games have, such as social skills, strategy skills, teamwork, cooperation. You can't win an MMO on your own, you need other people. Moving on, there's games like RPG games, role-play games, adventure, including games where you play the role of another person, of a character. Now there's 2 types, there's linear and non-linear storylines to these games, such as in the upcoming Fallout 4 game, you are playing as a character, and it's in an open world environment, and you can do what you want, when you want, how you want. This is a very highly praised game because of its ability to give you choice, and now you have morals and logic and critical thinking involved in this. Very linear games that don't give you a lot of options, you just play the game the way it's meant to be played, and then at the end, the credits roll, and that's it. Moving on, there's simulations. Now these have almost no downsides because they're strictly simulations of real-world events. They teach you exactly how to do something, like fly a plane or drive a race car. There's also puzzle games. These games also have very few downsides because of the way it makes your brain works. There are up to 10 different ways that these stretch your brain and make you think. They're even starting to mix these games with RPGs, giving them storylines and characters, and it's great. Next is my personal favorite genre of game, the sandbox game. These games are incredible because they're limitless, and they have one factor, one skill in your mind that none of the others share, and that is creativity and your ability to do whatever you want. And again, all these games have the addictive downside because a lot of people spend a lot of time playing these games, but personally I don't think that's a waste of time. So next, we're going to cover some misconceptions that a lot of parents have about the effects of gaming on their children. So before we get to these, we're going to cover the misconceptions. One is that it has a detrimental effect on your eyesight. Now that's actually the opposite of the truth. A lot of fast-paced and action games have the ability to increase your ability to see. Now that doesn't mean that your eyes are actually getting stronger or bigger or anything like that, but it does things like increases your ability to point out details in blurry situations or see different fields of view. Your ability to take an image on a 2D screen and turn it into a 3D idea in your head, things like this. There's also things like your attention. Now I want to show you two quick videos about the attention aspect of gaming.
So, in the same way that we actually see the effects of video games on people's behavior, we can use brain imaging and look at the impact of video game on the brain. And we do find many changes, but the main changes are actually to the brain networks that control attention. So one part is the parietal cortex, which is very well known to control the orientation of attention. The other one is the frontal lobe, which controls how we sustain attention. And another one is the anterior cingulate, which controls how we allocate and regulate attention and resolve conflict. Now, when we do brain imaging, we find that all three of these networks are actually much more efficient in people that play action games.
And next, we're going to play a little game. I'm doing this in the actual YouTube video so that we can quickly skip to each point and also get a full screen image. What I'm going to show you.
Every true teacher is to try something new. So tonight, you were trying.
Okay, so what I'm about to show you. Okay. Is a little, it's sort of like a game. And it's a game on your attention. So what this does is there's going to be one blue dot at the beginning of this thing, and there's going to be a bunch of other yellow dots. The blue dot is going to turn yellow, and it's your job to follow it and trace it to the end. So let's start with that. Hold on a second. people are going to be able to find that pretty easily, which one we were looking for. Now, next there's going to be 3 blue dots that you have to trace and follow. Now, the average human mind can easily trace these 4 blue dots. So there's the 3. Now, how many people were able to follow all 3 of those dots? Most of you, right? Okay. Lastly, the average action gamer in their prime can actually follow up to 7 blue dots and accurately choose all of them. So we're going to go to the last one here. Alright, so the key is to not move your eyes. So how many of you were able to retain all 7 of those? Only 1, right? So that's just a quick example of some of the effects that gaming has on your mind and your attention. Lastly, we're going to hit the future of gaming. So something that has recently been developed is what's called the Oculus Rift. And the Oculus is basically a 3D virtual reality simulator in which you put it on, and it has motion tracking technology which allows you to feel like you're in this environment. Now, not only is this a really incredible technology for gaming in the future, but it's also going to help us with things like performing surgery or space travel or simulations. And I find this to be extremely interesting, and I can't wait to see what's to come. Finally, hopefully you guys can see all the different ways that video games can stretch your brain, and that the positive effects outweigh the negatives by a landslide. I showed you some of the different positive and negative effects that gaming has on your mind, some of the misconceptions and clarifications, and the future of gaming. Thank you.
All right, Noel, what did you think?
Well, you really grabbed my attention. You knew exactly what the audience. But first problem I had was I had a very hard time understanding your thesis statement, and you really gave us 3 topics. You had a great quote, and you maybe you could have given us more like where you got your statistics of this. You did a great job on eye contact. You had a little too much visuals. You explain what they are and what you can do about these games and different types. Maybe you can organize your visual aids, specifically speaking to videos, a little bit more better, or take away some because they took up a lot of time. And when you brought up your last point about the future of gaming, maybe you could have given us a visual of the argument and a little bit more information, because you seemed like you rushed that last part. But in that, it was overall good speech.
All right, well, I'm not a fan of the audience survey, but it worked pretty well as an attention device here. Your topic I thought was clear. I didn't have a problem understanding what the thesis was, and I thought that there was a good preview, but in the body of the speech, I didn't think that you followed that structure as clearly as you needed to, and it seemed like you really found a couple of other topics to talk about, and then they just had, it's like there are three separate speeches here that you have just kind of molded together, and I think you could have picked one of them and talked about that. Probably for this audience, it's maybe too basic to define the different types of games by what their function is and what kinds of things that you do in those games. I thought that was interesting because I hadn't thought of it that way, and so that might have worked pretty well for me. Talking about the material here in the last section probably would have been the thing that would be more appropriate for this audience given the number of people who are gamers and play those sorts of things. And then we're talking about what the benefits are, for instance, when it comes to visual acuity or something along those lines. I did think in the first half of the speech there's a lot of claims that are made about video games that are advantageous that are not really backed up or supported. We just got conclusionary stuff. For instance, you said it's been proven that gamers are better drivers, and I'm going, yeah, by who? On what basis do you have such information? I don't know where that came from, and it's just there in the speech. And there are several other things that are like that also. In the later parts of the speech, I think you do a little bit better job kind of identifying information, and I think that that's where you really got focused and maybe start developing things. I got to kind of cut this short because you probably are aware that you went a little overtime, a lot overtime. It was 13 minutes and 22 seconds, so you are, more than 5 minutes overtime. I would yell louder, but then that would prevent me from, thinking.